The formidable B-17 bomber was a flying fortress in every sense of the word, braving relentless enemy fire, navigating harrowing missions, and carrying crews into the jaws of death, only to emerge as a testament to courage under fire. Behind its legendary status lies a fateful truth, a story of unimaginable suffering, devastating loss, and the haunting realities of aerial warfare. For every successful mission, there were countless others that ended in tragedy. Welcome to Historical Digs, where we explore the untold stories of history's greatest machines. Origins and development. The birth of the flying fortress. In the late 1930s, as global tensions escalated, the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress emerged as a technological marvel. Designed to deliver high-altitude strategic bombing with precision, this massive four-engined aircraft revolutionized aerial warfare. Heavily armed with 13 machine guns and capable of carrying substantial bomb payloads over vast distances, the B-17 was a testament to innovation. But this innovation came with a price. Each mission was a harrowing ordeal, with crews navigating freezing temperatures, unrelenting enemy fire, and an ever-present risk of death. The aircraft's nickname, Flying Fortress, reflected its near-impenetrable build, but it was a fortress of courage under siege for the men inside. Before we dig deeper into the fateful truth of the B-17 Flying Fortress, hit that like button and subscribe to Historical Digs. Your support helps us bring untold stories from history back to life. The dark realities of the B-17. Flying in a B-17 was nothing short of a nightmare. At cruising altitudes of 18,000 feet, the unpressurized aircraft subjected its crew to extreme conditions. Temperatures plummeted to -60 degrees Fahrenheit, forcing soldiers to rely on electric flying suits for warmth. Oxygen masks were another lifeline, critical in the thin air. A minor failure could render a crew member unconscious in moments. Formation, a dance with death. Flying the B-17 wasn't just about surviving the elements. It was about mastering formations that could mean the difference between life and death. Crews trained rigorously to fly in tight, overlapping formations that created a box of protective machine gun fire. This strategy minimized the threat of enemy fighters but introduced its own perils. Dozens of planes took off at 30-second intervals. Their coordination a ballet in the skies, yet the training alone claimed thousands of lives. Collisions and crashes were common as pilots struggled to navigate the chaotic airspace, turning practice missions into a grim prelude to the dangers of war. Pilots and gunners, often barely out of their teens, displayed heroism beyond their years, and during missions so treacherous they were described as journeys to hell and back. The European Theater. High-stakes missions over Europe. Operation Point Blank. Operation Point Blank was the backbone of the Allied strategy to secure air superiority over Europe by targeting the industrial lifeblood of the Luftwaffe. At the heart of this campaign was the B-17 Flying Fortress, a symbol of resilience and precision in the air war. Tasked with crippling Germany's aircraft production facilities, the B-17s struck key targets such as ball-bearing plants in Schweinfurt, aircraft factories in Regensburg, and oil refineries critical to fueling the Luftwaffe's war machine. These missions were daring and deadly, designed to choke off the Luftwaffe's ability to sustain its fighter defenses. The B-17 crews faced harrowing challenges as they flew deep into enemy territory. The raids pushed the limits of their endurance, with formations of flying fortresses braving dense flak shields and waves of Luftwaffe fighters. These missions reveal the aircraft's true strength, its ability to absorb punishing damage while continuing to deliver its payload. Even when engines sputtered or wings were riddled with bullet holes, the flying fortresses stayed on course, delivering strategic blows that weakened Germany's aerial production capacity. Despite devastating losses, especially during missions like the infamous Schweinfurt raids, the B-17's role in Operation Point Blank was pivotal in tilting the balance of air power toward the Allies. It not only crippled the Luftwaffe's ability to produce new aircraft, but also forced the redeployment of German fighters away from the front lines, easing the path for the eventual Allied invasion of Europe. The Schweinfurt-Regensburg raids. The Schweinfurt-Regensburg mission, flown on August 17, 1943, was one of the most daring and devastating operations of World War II. This double-strike mission aimed to cripple Germany's aircraft industry by targeting two separate locations simultaneously: Schweinfurt's ball bearing factories and Regensburg's aircraft production facilities. The strategy was bold, designed to overwhelm the Luftwaffe by dividing their fighter defenses. The mission saw 376 B-17 flying fortresses brave enemy defenses deep in German territory, far beyond the protective reach of escort fighters. While the Regensburg target suffered significant damage, the cost was staggering. 60 bombers were lost, and many others limped home with irreparable damage. These losses left the U.S. Army 8th Air Force too weakened to capitalize on their initial success with follow-up attacks. When Schweinfurt was bombed again 2 months later, the lack of long-range fighter escorts remained a critical issue, leading to even greater casualties. These setbacks forced a 5-month halt in deep penetration bombing missions, underscoring the high stakes and harrowing risks faced by the crews of the flying fortresses. In his book, The Luftwaffe over Germany, Defense of the Reich, Donald Caldwell said, "As soon as the reconnaissance photographs were received on the evening of the 17th, Generals Eaker and Anderson knew that the Schweinfurt raid had been a failure. The excellent results at Regensburg were small consolation for the loss of 60 B-17s. The results of the bombing were exaggerated, and the high losses were well disguised in the after-mission reports. Everyone who flew the mission stressed the importance of the escorts in reducing losses. The planners grasped only that Schweinfurt would have to be bombed again soon in another deep penetration unescorted mission." The Battle of Berlin, March 4th to March 8th, 1944. The Battle of Berlin, waged from March 4th to March 8th, 1944, was one of the most ambitious and perilous missions undertaken by the Allied air forces during World War II. Tasked with targeting the very heart of Nazi Germany's war machine, its capital and surrounding industrial hubs, the operation was as much a symbol of strategic intent as it was a test of the U.S. 8th Air Force's endurance. The centerpiece of these missions was the B-17 Flying Fortress, revered for its durability but not invincible against the gauntlet it faced over Berlin. The first day of the campaign, March 4th, saw a modest but determined raid of 29 to 30 B-17 bombers. Of these, 5 flying fortresses were lost, marking the grim reality of the risks that would grow exponentially in the coming days. On March 6th, the scope of the mission expanded massively, with 504 B-17s launched into the skies. The Luftwaffe, aided by relentless anti-aircraft flak, dealt a heavy blow, shooting down 69 bombers during the mission, one of the costliest single-day losses for the 8th Air Force. Despite the devastation, the crews pressed on, targeting critical infrastructure in Berlin and its surrounding areas. The final stage on March 8th saw the Allies escalate their assault with approximately 600 bombers, including dozens of B-17s, joining the fray. The Luftwaffe, though stretched thin, continued its aggressive defense, and reports suggest dozens more bombers were lost during the day's operations. The toll was staggering, with many crews never returning from the deadly skies above Germany. The losses over Berlin were a stark reminder of the price of strategic bombing. Yet, the mission achieved significant objectives, disrupting Germany's industrial output and morale. For the crews aboard the B-17s, it was not just a battle of attrition, but a testament to their courage and sacrifice, flying headlong into danger to strike at the heart of Nazi Germany. The human element, courage amid carnage. Amid the chaos, stories of bravery shone through like beacons in the darkness. Crews brought crippled aircraft home, engines sputtering and fuselages riddled with holes. In one legendary instance, the Memphis Belle became a symbol of hope. As one of the first B-17s to complete 25 missions, its crew defied the grim survival rates that hung over these missions like a death shroud. Legacy of the Skies, a testament to resolve. The European theater tested the B-17 and its crews in ways few could have imagined. Operation Point Blank, the Schweinfurt-Regensburg raids, and the Battle of Berlin were more than military operations. They were crucibles of sacrifice and resilience. The Pacific Theater, a different kind of war. The Pacific Theater was a battlefield unlike any other. A vast expanse of ocean, tropical jungles, and scattered islands where the B-17 Flying Fortress waged a very different kind of war. In the aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor, the B-17 became an immediate response tool, carrying out early missions to disrupt Japanese advances. Its long range and heavy payload made it a vital asset, but the Pacific introduced challenges that were entirely foreign compared to Europe's industrial landscapes. The Battle of Midway, June 1942. June 1942 marked a turning point in the war with the Battle of Midway. B-17 crews carried out high-altitude bombing runs against Japanese carriers, attempting to strike these critical targets from over 20,000 feet. The mission was fraught with difficulties. Hitting a moving ship from such heights was akin to threading a needle in a storm. Despite limited success in direct hits, the presence of the B-17s kept Japanese forces on edge, showcasing the strategic importance of air dominance. These missions underscored the stark difference from European bombing runs. Here, the targets weren't sprawling factories, but swift and agile warships in a constantly shifting sea. Guadalcanal Campaign, 1942 to 1943. From 1942 to 1943, the Guadalcanal Campaign saw the B-17 shift its focus to ground support, bombing Japanese positions to aid embattled Allied ground troops. The tropical environment presented its dangers: suffocating humidity, disease, and the constant threat of mechanical failure, far from any repair facilities. Maritime strikes and the Pacific's vastness. The distances were staggering, with missions often spanning thousands of miles over open water. Refueling and rearming were logistical nightmares, with limited infrastructure and remote airstrips serving as lifelines. The vastness of the Pacific was both a physical and psychological burden for B-17 crews, who faced the dual threats of enemy interceptors and the unforgiving sea. The Pacific Theater demanded adaptation and innovation. Unlike the concentrated bombing campaigns over Europe, were formations of B-17s blanketed cities. The Pacific's scattered targets and strategic priorities required smaller, more focused missions. The lack of densely packed urban targets meant the B-17's role leaned heavily on disrupting supply chains and delivering critical blows to enemy operations. Stories of survival and heroism. All-American. The skies over Nazi-occupied Europe were a theater of chaos, but on February 1, 1943, a B-17 named All-American faced an ordeal that would become the stuff of legend. While returning from a bombing run over Tunis, the aircraft was struck mid-air by an enemy fighter. The impact sheared off part of its tail section, leaving a gaping wound in the fuselage. The crew braced for the inevitable, convinced the aircraft would plummet to its doom. Yet, like a ghost defying death, the All-American stayed airborne. Buffeted by the winds that tore through its broken frame and barely holding together with cables and torn metal, the bomber limped back to its base in Algeria. Against all odds, every crew member survived. The miracle of the All-American became a testament to both human resilience and the engineering marvel of the B-17. Swamp Ghost, the Phantom of the Jungle. On February 23, 1942, the Swamp Ghost, a B-17 piloted by Captain Fred Eden, took off for a daring raid on Japanese forces in Rabaul. Hit by anti-aircraft fire and running low on fuel, the crew crash-landed in the remote Agayambo Swamp in Papua New Guinea. Miraculously, all crew members survived the crash and embarked on a harrowing journey through uncharted jungle to reach safety. For decades, the wreckage of the Swamp Ghost lay forgotten, shrouded in vines and mystery, as though swallowed by the earth itself. Rediscovered in 1972, its eerily preserved frame became an icon of the Pacific theater, a haunting reminder of the war's peril and the soldiers who braved the unknown. Salvaged and restored, the Swamp Ghost now stands as both a relic of history and a ghostly symbol of sacrifice. Legacy of the B-17 Flying Fortress. The B-17 Flying Fortress revolutionized the art of war, laying the foundation for modern strategic bombing. Its daring missions over Europe and the Pacific demonstrated the effectiveness of high-altitude precision strikes, crippling enemy supply chains and industrial capacities. The lessons learned from its use informed the strategic doctrines that shaped air combat in the decades to follow. More than just a tool of destruction, the B-17 symbolized resilience, withstanding relentless enemy fire, and enduring as a testament to Allied ingenuity and determination. Its influence forever altered the trajectory of aviation and military strategy. Though its combat days are long past, the spirit of the B-17 endures. Restored aircraft like the Memphis Belle and the Sentimental Journey serve as living monuments. The story of the B-17 Flying Fortress is one of unparalleled courage, resilience, and innovation. From the perilous skies over Europe to the vast expanses of the Pacific, this legendary aircraft not only reshaped the course of World War II, but also left an indelible mark on the future of aviation and warfare. It stands as a symbol of human ingenuity and sacrifice, a reminder of the bravery of the crews who risked everything to defend freedom. Thank you for joining us in exploring the fateful truth of the B-17 Flying Fortress. If you enjoy this story, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more fascinating tales of aviation history. And don't forget to check out these other videos for more untold stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.